Welcome to our webinar, Preparing and Applying for Your Psychology Field Experience. As you progress through your doctoral program in psychology, you will need to meet your field experience program requirements. How do you prepare for your search? Today we'll be addressing many of your questions about this process. And we have an expert panel starting with Jennifer Hansen. She's the Field Education Coordinator for Psychology Licensure Programs at Walden University. Prior to her current role, she served as an academic advisor for Walden psychology programs. She has an MA in Human Development and a BS in Human Relationships from the University of Minnesota in the Twin Cities. Jennifer specializes in the field experience process and student advising. Hi, Jennifer, and welcome.
Hi, everyone.
We also have Dina Berggren, Career Services Advisor, and she brings over 12 years of combined experience in higher education, student advising, and career development. As a Career Services Advisor at Walden University, Dina delivers group training. She provides individual career advising as well. She has an MA in Human Resource Development, and her areas of expertise include career transitions, networking, and resumes and CVs. Hi, Dina. Hi, everyone. And finally, we have Dr. Ford. He is the Field Placement Coordinator for the Clinical Psychology Program at Walden University. Dr. Ford has 40 years of experience in clinical practice and mental health education and has been teaching at Walden University since 2002. In addition to his PhD in clinical psychology, Dr. Ford is also a board-certified diplomat in clinical social work emeritus. Dr. Ford specializes in working with adolescents and young adults. His research interests include psychotherapy process and outcomes, social cognition theory, evolutionary psychology, the empirical examination of psychodynamic constructs, eating disorders, and the assessment and treatment of ADHD. Welcome, Dr. Ford.
Hey, hi everybody.
That was a mouthful. And with that, I will hand it over to Jennifer. But actually before we get to you, Jennifer, we want to get some feedback from our audience. So we are going to launch a poll. We would like to know who's joining us today and what specialization you are pursuing. Clinical psychology, counseling psychology, school psychology, and other. So if our audience would take a moment to click on the appropriate option, we would greatly appreciate that. Okay, our audience looks like we have a lot of clinical psychology students. We're going to give everyone a moment to put in the answer, and we will share the results momentarily. Okay. Here we go. It looks like the majority of our attendees, 65% approximately, are currently pursuing the specialization of clinical psychology, and about another 30% counseling psychology. Excellent. 3% school psychology. Excellent. Thanks everyone for joining us today. Okay, with that, I would like to go ahead and hand it over to Jennifer to get started with our objectives.
Great, thank you. Tonight we will discuss the field experience objectives. So we will talk about how to prepare for the field experience portion of your degree program. We will provide strategies on how to conduct a proactive field experience search. We will look at how you can market yourself and Walden University. And finally, we will show you how you can develop a step-by-step plan to land your field experience site. So why field experience? And what is the field experience? Well, the field experience is basically a general term for applied experience in one's chosen field of study. So for all of you, the PhD psychology program, the field experience refers to the practicum and internship. And the why is because obviously it's required in your degree program, and it happens at the end of your program, commonly alongside your dissertation, when all coursework is done. It's putting into practice what you have studied over the past few years. So the purpose of field experience. First off, it's the fulfillment of program requirements. So you will be required at the end of your program to complete 750 hours of practicum, which is a minimum of 2 quarters, and then you'll go on to your internship, which is 2,000 hours and 4 quarters. The next purpose is for the preparation for licensure, and you should probably periodically consult with your state's criteria for licensure to ensure that each experience meets those requirements, particularly before planning your field experience. That's very important. I'm going to ask Dr. Ford to jump in here and talk about the following 2 bullet points, if you can, Dr. Ford.
Sure.
Great.
In some ways, it's quite obvious that we want you to go out into the field and demonstrate and learn more about psychological testing and interviewing that allows you to conceptualize a case. In other words, what's the nature of the problem a client is having, some theoretical propositions about how that came to be, what maintains the problem, and some ideas about what you can do about it so you can develop a treatment plan and then engage in the treatment process. And the treatment process may involve individual therapy, family therapy, group therapy, and other modalities. And at the end of that process, with each client, you're doing some kind of monitoring of the client's process or progress and the process that you used, and developing some idea of how you're doing as a practitioner. People often forget about that latter portion, and they do the assessment, they do the treatment, and then move on to the next client without really taking a look at how well they did with a given client. So we want you to make sure that you look at those things. And of course, in the process of field training, you're going to get experience with specific client populations, and there are a couple of things to say about that. One, you may have already selected an area that you want to work with, or you may have some experience in that area, and it's good to maybe to get additional experience with a population you've already had experience with, or that you're simply interested in. But it's also good to try to get some field training in some areas that you're not familiar with, or that you haven't had exposure to in the past. So that's something to think about when you get out there looking for places. It doesn't just have to be some place that you think you'll ultimately want to work, but someplace that will give you a broader experience along with the area that you hope to work in. And if you're really lucky and good at it, you might be able to find a site where you can do both. You can have your cake and eat it too. Jennifer, you have some additional things to add to that.
I don't think so. That sounds great. Thank you. Wonderful. So I think we're ready. Yep. So the next slide, internship and practicum requirements. So let's start with the practicums, since that happens first. And basically for the practicum, it's the completion of the AYR, which is the academic year in residence, or in the last term of AYR. And for most of you, completing your AYR will be necessary, as most of you probably started after 2008. However, if you started in 2008 or prior, then you would be allowed to start your practicum during your final quarter of AYR. And this is a big question that comes up a lot, so I'm always happy to talk to you. You can contact my department directly. I can run a course audit and determine your eligibility around start dates based on that. Secondly, the next step is an approved practicum application. And the field placement coordinator, such as Dr. Ford, would be the one who would do the final review and make the final decision. And finally, completion of all prerequisite courses. And these courses are all listed in your catalog, and it's very important to know what these are ahead of time so you can plan accordingly. So I definitely encourage all of you to check that out after this webinar if you haven't done so already. And then for the internship, it's the completion of all coursework except for the dissertation. I'd say most students are definitely working on their dissertation alongside their internship. The next step is completion of practicum, and this is obvious, I hope. So you complete your practicum, and then you go on to your internship. And finally, an approved internship application as well. The field experience process. First, you must submit the registration intent form to my department, which is psych field training at waldenu.edu. You will become very familiar with that email address, and I'm the one who answers email to that address. And this form is due 1 month prior to the application deadline. So if your application is due on June 1st, then you would send me the form on May 1st or before. And basically, I run a course audit to determine your eligibility, and I also start a file for you on our database. Next, you submit a complete application by the deadline, and the deadlines are all listed in the practicum and internship applications, and also in the field training manual, among other places. It's kind of everywhere. Applications, for example, are due June 1st for a fall quarter start. So they're always due on the first day of the quarter prior to your quarter start. After the application is received, the field education coordinator, myself, and field placement coordinator will review your application. I will review it first, and I'll let you know if you're missing anything, if I need clarification on anything, and if everything looks good and complete, I will forward your application on for final review with the field placement coordinator, which would be Dr. Ford here in our presentation for all of you clinical students. And then finally, if approved, the field education coordinator, myself, will register you for practicum or internship. And this is important. You will not be able to register yourself, nor can an academic advisor register you. I will register you for 2 quarters of practicum and 4 quarters of internship. But if you need additional quarters, then it's your responsibility to contact me, and I will get you registered again, so no one else can register you except myself. Psychology learning outcomes or goals. And Dr. Ford, please feel free to add anything if you like after each point. So first we have psychology foundations. Graduates will acquire knowledge in the foundations of psychology and will develop identities as counseling and clinical psychologists as well as school psychologists. Next, the scholar practitioner perspective. Graduates apply knowledge and demonstrate skills in the scientific, methodological, and theoretical foundations of psychology from a scholar practitioner perspective. Next, assessment and intervention techniques. Graduates will demonstrate proficiency in the use of empirically supported psychological assessment and intervention techniques with diverse clientele in various settings. And next, diverse client populations. Graduates will demonstrate the ability to work ethically and effectively with a diverse clientele. And finally, professional contributions to the field. Graduates will actively identify and contribute to the counseling, school, or clinical psychology profession by demonstrating attitudes and behaviors essential for lifelong learning, for scholarly inquiry, advocacy, and professional problem solving as clinical counseling or school psychologists, with a particular emphasis on positive social change. I know it's a mouthful. Okay, next slide. The implications for long-term career success. Internship and practicum experiences allow for networking opportunities, such as with site supervisors in your practicum or internship, obviously. Other psychologists who may be on site or contract in with your site, and other social service professionals. So it's a great opportunity for that. And other interns, things like that. It's also helpful for mentoring relationships to help you learn and grow as a professional in your field. They also allow for professional references for future opportunities, and finally for practical experience to prepare you for your career. And then our slide, target your field experience sites. And at this time, I'm going to hand it over to Dina, who will discuss how to research and target your field experience sites.
Thank
you, Jennifer. And today I will be discussing how to conduct a proactive field experience search to help you maximize your chances of landing an internship and or practicum site. A proactive field experience search means using networking, online search, and informational meetings to prepare and market your unique brand, or what is unique about you as a professional. The first step in a proactive search is to tap into your Walden University network. Jennifer, who is your field experience coordinator, should have a list of past and current Walden student placements. So find out where students have completed their field experience in the past, as those sites are already familiar working with Walden University students. Also, Dr. Ford, your field placement coordinator, can follow up with a formal letter from Walden University to specific sites, and this letter helps introduce students' requirements for practicum and supervisor responsibilities. You should also connect with other students you've met at academic residencies, in your virtual classrooms, and through online networking. So get feedback and advice from others. And after you reach out to your Walden community, you'll also want to research potential sites using some of the following methods. Yellow Pages or Google searches can help you locate agencies in your area. You can tap into local college and university websites for possible internship listings on those sites. Check out specific facility websites to learn more about their history, mission, the client population, who they serve, job titles of employees and supervisors, and also any challenges the site may have. Go for a site visit to learn more about the environment, employees at that location, and pick up some literature or brochures to learn more. There's also the APPIC online directory, and the APPIC is the Association of Psychology Postdoctoral and Internship Centers. You can apply to the APPIC directory, but you should not contact affiliated APPIC sites outside of the application process. Professional associations are great places to research field experience sites. So join your local and state chapters, and your state chapters can have listings of potential internship sites on their websites. Also, if you are a member, you have access to member directories, and you can contact potential site supervisors. Also, attend local, regional, and state conferences and presentations. Network with other professionals to learn more about specific sites and field experience opportunities. So grow your network through professional associations. Sign up for listservs and APA, the American Psychological Association, the APAGS, which is the American Psychological Association of Graduate Students, and also the ACA, which is the American Counseling Association. They all have listservs. And social media. LinkedIn is the largest professional networking site out there. And we'll be talking more about LinkedIn, and there is also a list of LinkedIn groups at the end of this presentation. So one additional tip is to create a list of agencies and individuals at those agencies to target in your search. So after you research specific sites, you also want to get the inside scoop on potential site supervisors at those sites. Get the inside scoop on by visiting facility websites. The websites may include names of licensed psychologists, their titles and roles within the organization. Use Google to find out what potential supervisors are involved in. What are their achievements, their research interests, their areas of specialization. Try to identify interests or professional activities you may have in common, so build common ground, and this may help you build rapport later on in the interview process. Social media sites can often provide insider information on people as well as organizations. So use LinkedIn to learn more about site supervisors, take a look at their profiles, and check if you belong to the same professional associations or special interest groups in your field. So next, what I'm going to do is hand it over to Jennifer, and she will discuss site supervisor requirements.
Great, thank you. Okay, so site supervisors who meet field experience requirements. So for the practicum, they must be a doctoral level psychologist. Since you're studying to be a psychologist, very clear, they should also be a psychologist, and oftentimes students will say, oh, they're a psychiatrist or a social worker, and that just is not appropriate. So that's very important. They must be licensed, certified, or qualified in the jurisdiction where they practice. And they must also have at least 3 years of post-licensure experience. And then for the internship, pretty similar, but we do require 2 doctoral level psychologists for supervision. They should also be licensed, certified, or qualified in the jurisdiction where they practice. The primary supervisor should be present at the training facility 20 or more hours a week. They must both be in good standing with the licensure board, and they should have at least 3 years of post-licensure experience. And then on our next slide, we talk about, other considerations. So to kind of go off of that, if we're looking for the secondary site supervisor piece here, if we're talking about the practicum, basically the rule is this. When a non-psychologist is used as the primary supervisor, we need a secondary supervisor who is a state licensed PhD level psychologist who's in charge of overseeing the psychological testing students are expected to do. So there is some way of doing it for the practicum where your primary would not have to be a psychologist, but then the secondary has to absolutely be a psychologist. And Dr. Ford, do you want to say anything more on this? Because I know this is a big question that comes up a lot.
Well, one of the things to underscore is that the primary supervisor in a practicum has to be a licensed mental health professional, and I stress the word licensed because occasionally a student will say, well, the person doesn't have a license, but can they supervise me? And the answer to that is absolutely not. It would be completely unethical. But we can make some exceptions for practicum settings where you might have a social worker or a licensed professional counselor as the primary supervisor. However, as Jennifer said, we have to have a secondary supervisor who is a fully licensed psychologist because it's the psychology profession that specializes above any other profession in psychological testing and is credentialed and licensed in any given state to do psychological testing and to oversee someone else doing it. So that person has to be on board to oversee the psychological testing that you do. If you have other questions about that, you can always write to Jennifer or I, and we can clarify any questions you might have.
Definitely. Okay, bullet point number 2, assumption of risk. And this is basically involved with the internship. So students who are unable to establish a secondary site supervisor, will be required to complete the assumption of risk form. This is something that you need to do to affirm that you understand the potential limitations imposed by failing to have a secondary site supervisor in your state. So you would double check with your state board to make sure it is not a requirement to have 2 supervisors, because in many states it is. So you really want to make sure if you don't have 2 supervisors that your state will accept this for licensure. And then we need that form submitted along with your application packets. And then again, state licensure board requirements, as we mentioned a bit. It is super important for you to periodically check your state's criteria for licensure to ensure that each experience, your practicum and internship, meet the requirements of your states. And states can often change the requirements, so it's helpful and very important to check maybe twice a year at least. And then finally, the field experience manual, and as you see, the link is written there. You can also find this manual If you go through your My Walden student portal and go through the forms link, and at the bottom of that is the section for the field training forms, and the field experience manual lives there. And so anything we say today in this webinar can definitely be found in the field training manual, so make sure that you guys all have that downloaded on your desktop or printed out and use that as a reference.
Okay, thank you so much, Jennifer. Next, I'm going to discuss personal branding, or what makes you unique and helps you stand out over other psychology students and professionals. But first of all, let's get some feedback from our audience. Do you know your personal brand? Yes, I know my unique strength, abilities, and value and can communicate them effectively. I have some ideas about my brand, but I'd like to develop it further. Or no, personal branding is new for me. Can you tell me more? So what do you think about your personal brand? And we'll give it a minute here. Looks like most of you have some idea of your personal brand, and many of you also know your unique strength, abilities, and values. So it looks like most of you have thought about your brand and what makes you stand out from others. So how do you define your brand? Your brand is what is unique about you as an individual. It is what makes you stand out from others, what you're best known for or the go-to person for. It incorporates your greatest strength and also how you can add value. In other words, your personal brand consists of your interests, skills, personality, and values, your academic achievements at Walden, related volunteer and work experience that you've gained, professional contributions that you've made. Maybe you've written articles or have given presentations. Your community involvement and the impact you make in your community, and also your specialized knowledge areas. Showcasing your strength can also help educate your potential sites on what you have to offer over other applicants. So make a list of your branding attributes and also get some feedback from others about your brand. So how do others perceive you? And along with your own personal brand, you'll also need to market the Walden University brand. So how do you do that? How do you market your university and psychology program? Focus on the social change mission of our university. And also mention the qualified faculty who have degrees from leading universities. The diverse global perspective of your education here. And also the national and international student population. You're in classes with people all over the world. Your academic residency experience, which is your face-to-face component of your program. And of course, the rigorous curriculum. So if your site supervisor or potential site supervisor is not familiar with Walden, your job as an applicant is to educate him or her on how your Walden experience can benefit them. In other words, you want to find your match. How are your qualifications aligned with the needs of your potential sites? Ask yourself these questions as you approach a potential field experience site. What values and contributions can you bring to that particular site? What knowledge and skills that you've gained will be most useful for them. Ask yourself whether your qualifications match their needs and vice versa. And will you fit in with the people and culture? Will you be a good fit for this facility or site? So next, let's get some more advice from Dr. Ford about trainee selection. And Dr. Ford, in your experience, what makes a difference in the selection process? Can you share examples of some students who made a stellar impression on you?
Well, let's see. I have to think back over the course of about 40 years in private clinics and hospitals where I've hired, supervised, administered, and trained staff and students. And as you might imagine, I have quite a few people in my memory. But let me try to summarize it as best I can. Generally, I'm looking for people who have a good balance in terms of being trainees between confidence and humility. I look for people who are personable, who can directly respond to my questions without talking in circles. I should also say that when trainees are coming in, if they've got some experience clinically, that certainly does impress me and gives me more confidence. Or if they have the ability to convince me that the non-clinical experience they have has applicability to what they're going to have to do as trainees in my agency, and they can show me how they can transform some of those things into clinical practice, in addition to their academic training. And like anyone else, I look for good eye contact and professional grooming, and being professional in self-presentation without being too formal. And again, it's a matter of balance in that regard. What I don't like to see is arrogance or overconfidence in a trainee. As you might imagine, we're looking at people who are in a trainee role, and if they're going to be overconfident and arrogant, that can get in the way of relationship building and the training experience itself. I'm also quite impressed when I see the correct use of professional terminology that students bring. So in the interviews, if you're going to use professional jargon or terminology, be certain that it's correct. And if you're not absolutely certain that it's correct, don't use it, because that often turns people off. Also, if you send a letter or any kind of formal written communication to an agency, I know when I get it, if it's loaded with logic and grammar errors, that's a big turnoff. So you want to make sure that if you're going to write letters of introduction for yourself, that you have those very carefully reviewed by people who are interested in your best interest and are good readers and editors. They can make sure you're not sending out something that won't make you look good. Nothing really is less professional than typos and grammar areas. So those are some of the things that impress and disappoint me when I'm looking at potential trainees. And my guess is that those are pretty common elements that many supervisors look for, Dina.
Thank you, Dr. Ford, for sharing your insights. I definitely agree with you on all of this, with having a fit with the people and the culture, no errors on application materials, and building a relationship with a professional relationship with the site supervisor. So in the next section, I will discuss how to create winning application materials to help with that. Your application materials are there to help you get to the next phase of the selection process, which is, of course, the interview. You'll want to use, for your letter of intent, standard business letter formatting, and you can see an example here on this slide. Your letter should be 3 to 5 paragraphs in length, and it should fit onto one page. So let's talk about these paragraphs. And this sample. Your introductory paragraph should identify the purpose of your letter. It should mention how you heard about this particular opportunity and briefly describe why you're interested in this specific site. So in other words, you want to tailor your letter to each and every site that you're applying for. The middle paragraphs should mention Walden's regional accreditation, your psychology program, and the quality of your instruction. You should emphasize academic achievements and your coursework and knowledge areas, such as, for instance, intervention, psychotherapy, psychological assessment and testing, psychopathologies, ethics, and others. You want to reference your volunteer and paid experience and transferable skills from other positions you've held. So Dr. Ford mentioned the importance of having some experience in the field, either through paid experience or through volunteering. So consider gaining experience as you move through your program. Your final paragraphs should express your enthusiasm for the site and also for the position. Reference your CV or curriculum vitae. You should provide the field education coordinator contact information in case they have more questions, and you should conclude with a general statement expressing interest in a future discussion. So you can refer to this sample for ideas how to create your own unique letter of intent. And as Nicole mentioned earlier, this webinar will be archived on the Career Services Center website for your reference, so you can look back and refer to the sample. And as I mentioned, tailor your letter to the specific site you're applying to. So focus on how you can meet their needs and tailor your materials toward their needs. And along with your letter, you'll need to include a curriculum vitae that highlights your professional experience and academic achievements. A curriculum vitae is defined as a biographical description of a person's educational and work background. In other words, it highlights your academic-related qualifications. It also tends to be longer than a resume. So if you have many years of experience, your CV may be 5 to 8 pages in length, for instance. We have a complete CV guide that can help you create a strong CV and strengthen it section by section. And this guide also includes a sample template to help you with formatting. So there's a link to the guide that you can refer to on our website. So next, let's pull all of our materials together and organize them into a career portfolio. So why make the effort to create a career portfolio? Your career portfolio can further help you stand out over your competition in the following ways. It sets you apart from other applicants who are only submitting a resume or CV. It leaves a lasting impression on your potential site, and it allows the site to learn more about you because it includes specific samples of your work. It also includes accomplishments and achievements to reference during an interview. So during an interview, you can show examples of your work, making it easier to explain what you can do for that specific site. Now let's discuss what should be included inside your career portfolio. You want to include your letter of intent, your curriculum vitae, any application papers and assignments from your program that would be useful. Your course descriptions or coursework can be included in there. Dissertation topic if applicable, your program of study, and also an example of a Walden University classroom. you want to use your post only and a professor's response to your post, so do not include other students' responses if you take a screenshot of the classroom discussion area. And you can also include Walden University information, such as our history and accreditation and other information. I should say the academic accreditation. And the psychology program information, which includes program requirements, curriculum and course descriptions, your field experience manual, which we discussed earlier, and also letters of recommendation from practicing professionals and the Walden faculty. So remember also to get feedback from other professionals on the quality of your portfolio, and make sure your portfolio is well organized, easy to read, and includes no typos and no grammatical errors. The results of your efforts in creating a career portfolio can also help increase your chances of advancing to the next stage of the selection process, which is, of course, the interview. So next we'll discuss interviewing. And to prepare for your interviews, you'll want to create stories that help you share your accomplishments. So how do you do that? How do you create stories? If you've already defined your unique brand and have developed strong application materials, it is then much easier to share your stories. So in other words, you want to use your letter of intent, your curriculum vitae, and your career portfolio, and create stories which are SMART. And SMART is an acronym for situation, which includes the contextual details, more or quantifiable, action steps that you took, results that were achieved, and finally the most important part is the tie-in, and this is the part that most people miss. The tie-in links your past behavior or achievements to future behavior and what you can do for them. So in other words, SMART stories help show that you can walk the talk. You'll also want to write down your stories and practice them and memorize them, and avoid general terms without examples. What I mean by that are terms such as hardworking, great communication skills, strong work ethic. Those terms don't give a lot to the reader. So here's an example of a SMART story from a student who is transitioning into the psychology field. So in 2007, I volunteered at Lawrence House, a facility for mentally ill and chemically dependent adults. So volunteered at Lawrence House, this is the situation. In my time there, I recruited 10 patients to plant a vegetable garden. So 10 patients is the more because it's quantifiable, and the fact that you recruited patients to help plant a garden, that is the action. My initiative helped promote physical activity, healthy eating, and sustainability. That's the result of your effort. And the last sentence is the most important. As an intern at your facility, I hope to practice assessment and intervention activities under supervision to further help mentally ill adults take initiative in their daily lives and ameliorate their conditions. So this is how you are tying in what you've done in the past to what you can do in the future. So I suggest writing down 4 to 6 SMART stories and practicing them. And if you already have substantial experience in psychology, counseling, and or social services, you'll also want to create stories that best highlight your greatest accomplishments in clinical practice settings. And that way you're able to easily provide solid examples during the interview process. So next, Dr. Ford, would you share your insights into the interview process? What types of interview questions are common during the selection process that you've come across?
Sure. Well, as you all might imagine, there may well be hundreds or thousands of questions that you might be asked by various supervisors and people in various agencies. And I've just put together a short list that might give you some idea of what to be prepared for, but of course you never know exactly what people are going to ask you. But if I were interviewing you, I might ask you if you have any experience with the population that we serve here at our agency. Do you know much about them diagnostically, and what some of the major treatment models are that help this kind of population? I might ask you what psychological tests you've been trained to use, what experience you've had with those tests in the field, if any, and if you haven't, you tell me that as well. I might ask you what are some of the areas of clinical practice where you feel the most competent. And again, I'd like to hear a balance between confidence and humility about that. I'd ask you perhaps what are some areas in clinical practice where you think you need a lot more development. I might ask you when you think of receiving clinical supervision, how do you envision that? What sort of things would you like to get from me as your supervisor while you're in the process of training? And I might also ask you how well you handle developmental comments about your performance. In other words, how well do you stand up to corrective recommendations and a critical analysis of your work? It's sort of obvious that we'd want you to be able to tolerate being talked to directly if there are things that you need to, you have challenges and things you need to improve. So those are the sorts of questions that you might get. Some people might get more extensive in asking you about theoretical and diagnostic issues, or asking you more specifics about psychological testing or specific tests. And so you have to be prepared to talk about those things. And those are the kinds of questions I think that you'd be most likely to encounter. I hope that helps, Deanna.
It certainly does. Thank you so much for your feedback, Dr. Ford. And could you also share a few examples of Walden students who were successful in landing their internships practica?
Well, I'm glad to say that we've probably got at least 1,000 people placed over the last 5 years or so. So there really are many examples of success, because most of our students end up finding very acceptable sites and completing their practicums and internships and getting through the program. So success is pretty common. And I think the success most often comes from a lot of hard work on the part of students in terms of multiple site contacts, multiple interviews, a good solid personal and professional presentation, and perhaps most important, tenacity, because it often takes some months or even longer. Sometimes people will spend a year looking for sites, and you have to be prepared to do that. And I hope that makes sense. We do have, as we had mentioned earlier, lists of sites from all across the country where Walden students have been in the past, and more and more students are using those with success as we get those lists as the list grows. So that may be helpful, and be sure to ask for that when you begin your search process. I should also say that probably the best sites, the most ideal sites, are large, particularly for clinical students. Large clinics, hospitals, and clinics that have multiple psychologists and even other interns. And of course the APIC sites, if you can get APPIC sites, are darn near ideal. However, it's important for you all to understand that APIC sites are very difficult to get into, and that's not true just for Walden students, but for all students. Many students across the country from all universities apply to those sites. It's very competitive, and they're very tough to get into, but if you can get them, they're really wonderful sites. I should say that each year maybe 10 or 15 of our students do apply, and 1 or 2 do get selected. So it is a possibility, but it's not someplace where I want you to put all of your eggs in terms of the basket, because as you can see from my little statistic there, your chances of getting one are pretty slim. And if that's the only thing you hope to get, then you're going to end up looking a lot longer. So I would look at multiple opportunities, including that, if that's something you think you want to go through. And we can tell you more about that if you write to us. So again, the success issue involves an awful lot of hard work on your part, and making multiple contacts, and giving a good presentation of yourself in accordance with the things that Dina's talked about in terms of personal brand.
Thank you, Dr. Ford. Your comments about expanding the search and expanding your network and achieving a level of professionalism and humility. I think all of those are huge factors in success. So next we're going to go on and let's discuss other considerations. So what else should you know as you approach your field experience search? In his book, The Job Hunter's Survival Guide, Richard Bolles, who is one of the gurus out there in career development, he discussed the 5 top search methods for finding a job. And these methods can also be translated and adapted to the field experience search. So the #1 method he talks about is to take inventory on what you have to offer and what you're looking for. So for the field experience search, what does that mean? It means taking a holistic approach to your search, identifying your interests and skills, your career goals, and writing down your goals, researching environments and sites and people at those sites, and marketing your personal brand. So in other words, being proactive. #2 is working with others to identify subjects or fields of interest to you. For you, that means building a network of psychology professionals and asking for their input. By yourself, identify and contact organizations via phone or site. So research sites and contact them via phone or site visits. Knock on doors whether there is a vacancy or not. This has to do with expanding your search again. So reach out to sites that interest you and be proactive and contact them. And ask your network for leads. So ask other psychology professionals in your network about field experience openings and opportunities. So these methods, if you apply them, can increase your chances of success. Here are a few additional strategies you can apply to help you with your search. Create a powerful introduction and practice it. It's that answer to the question, tell me a little bit more about yourself. How would you respond? It has to do with your personal brand and what aspects of your experience do you want to highlight in your introduction. Practice smart stories. We talked about smart stories, so practice yours so you can share stories with others. Strengthen your online presence by joining LinkedIn and creating a quality profile. And then build field experience search skills. Quintessential Careers, quintcareers.com. It's one of my favorite websites, and they have a wonderful internship tutorial to give you more tips on your search. After everything, pull everything together into a step-by-step approach or action plan for yourself. So here's an example of an action plan. Contact site supervisors directly, either through phone or in person, and arrange informational meetings, either face-to-face or over the phone, or with the use of technology increasing. Skype is becoming more and more popular these days. Provide targeted application materials. Reach out to the field experience coordinator. Jennifer will follow up with the site. And also practice your mock interviewing skills. So partner up with someone else, another professional, and another psychology student, and practice interviewing. Get feedback on your personal brand and your interviewing skills. And meet with the site supervisor. During your meeting, share stories. Ask meaningful questions. As Dr. Ford mentioned, with humility, right? You want to bring articles and share information with them. Let them know what you're passionate about. Express your interest and enthusiasm. And leave your career portfolio so they can look at it and review it after your meeting and get to know you better. Follow up with a thank you letter, an email or a phone call, again, expressing your interest and mentioning how you can add value to the site. And finally, land the practicum and the internship. Still need more ideas? Well, tell everyone you know you are searching. And join special interest groups related to your field. So join professional associations and LinkedIn groups. And ask experts for advice.
Adina,
yes.
This is Dr. Ford. It occurs to me that one thing students often fail to do, if they're told by a site that there are no openings, and they're talking with a supervisor or an administrator at that site, it's always good to say that you appreciate their considering you, and wonder if there are other sites that they may be aware of in the community that may be interested in working with you as a student. So you can maybe you can turn a failure possibly into a success by getting another a referral. So keep that in mind.
That's an excellent point. So during your informational meeting, ask, is there anyone else that you would recommend I speak with? And that's a really great approach to tap into not only your first level connection, but your second level connections. So each psychology professional also has a network of professionals. So tap into their network and expand your possibilities. So expand your search. Expand your search also geographically. The number of facilities you're considering, and knock on more doors. And be open to new settings and new populations. So have an open mind, because there may be opportunities that you haven't even thought of. Work on your professional image. Visualize yourself in your future role as a practicing psychologist, and look and behave accordingly as a professional in your field. And practice, practice, practice. Partner up with another student or professional and practice your field experience and your interviewing skills. For more information and assistance, please contact Jennifer and Dr. Ford, and they will help you with the field experience process. If you need career-related assistance, visit the Career Services website. We have so many resources available on our site. The resources and resumes and CVs tabs, those are very helpful. We have links to field experience and volunteer opportunities, archived webinars on a variety of different topics, including social media, LinkedIn, many others. And of course, this webinar will be archived there as well. We have a great Career Services blog where we share student success stories. So share your success stories with us. We'd love to hear back from our students. We have a LinkedIn group, and you can schedule individual and group advising appointments with us. And you can email us with questions as well.
I should also quickly comment that for those of you who are in the counseling program, you would contact Dr. Tracy Marsh with any field training questions you have, and for those of you who are in school, Dr. Tim Leonetti. And
okay.
The rest of you in clinical, you're stuck with me.
They're lucky. with everyone. So there are basically many people there to help you with the field experience and many people to support you in the process. Okay, so here's a screenshot of the Career Services Center website. You can get to our site through your My Walden portal through the Academics tab. And to learn more, get involved in LinkedIn groups. Join the Walden University LinkedIn group. And here's a screenshot of our group. And explore LinkedIn groups related to psychology. And share resources with others, gain knowledge, and grow your professional network. Here are some resources we use for our presentation if you'd like to learn more. And with that, Nicole, do we have any questions out there, either for myself or Jennifer or Dr. Ford?
Hi, yes, we have lots of questions, lots of interesting questions coming in. So first, I have a question for, I think, all of you. Any one of you who you think you can address this question. The question is, how can we find out if any Walden alumni are available for mentorship or networking? So again, how can we find out if any Walden alums are available for mentorship, or networking?
We do have a Walden Alumni Association and group that's managed by one of our faculty at Walden. So if any of you are interested in doing that, just write to me and I'll pass you along to that coordinator, and she can contact the larger alumni group and see if they have any interest in doing that kind of work.
This is Dina, and I would also like to comment that there is a Walden University LinkedIn group where students can join the group and also alumni. And also, as I mentioned earlier, the Walden University Career Services LinkedIn group, which is also open to students and alumni and is open for networking.
I should say that we have had a couple of Walden alumni supervise our students for field training, and it's worked out quite well.
Excellent. The next question is, please discuss field experiences at current work site. So I think what she means is where she is working now. So the option to conduct a field experience at her current work site.
I understand the question. Yes, this occurs with some students, but it is highly discouraged for a variety of reasons. It's also important to know that if you plan on doing that, you're going to have to make arrangements to clearly separate your job from your training role in terms of schedule, in terms of the clients you see, in terms of who does the supervision. And if you have a full-time job and you plan on doing a full-time practicum or internship, you can see that you'd be doing darn near a double shift at wherever you're working in order to do that, or you'd have to resign your current position. And it gets very complicated, and that is among the reasons why we discourage it. It's not impossible, but it's very difficult to make it work out. Also, I should say that most of the problems we encounter in field training situations occur when students try to use their work site as a training venue. There are sometimes problems between the student and the existing faculty, existing staff or supervisors or administrators at the agency when you try to mix those roles. So it's very problematic, and so I can't discourage it enough. But I do have to say it's not impossible. So talk to us about it if you plan on doing that, and we'll try to guide you through all of the details and issues associated with that.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, next question. With regard to an internship, how important is it to obtain an APA or APIC internship? Great question.
It's not critical, but it's useful in most situations. In some states, an APA or APIC site is required. That's very few states require that, but you have to check with your board, and if your board requires that, obviously you need to comply with their expectations. I should also say that generally when they require that, they also require APA accreditation of the school that you're attending, which clearly we are not APA accredited at this time, and so just getting the APA or APIC site alone would probably not be enough in the states that do require that. Now, aside from that, it's very valuable if you can get an APIC site. It looks great on your resume. You get the best kind of training there. Usually, there are exceptions to that, in my experience. They're not all perfect, but they're usually very well designed, and the supervisors have lots of experience supervising students, and they have a pretty good idea of what the contemporary issues are and needs are in the training of psychologists. So they're very valuable, and I would encourage you to at least apply and try to get one. But you also have to understand that they're all over the country, and if you can't relocate geographically, even if you do get selected, that sort of leaves you high and dry, and you can't accept it. So make sure that you're prepared to accept one if you get offered.
Excellent, thank you. So we would encourage you to stay on the line just a few more minutes while we address these very important questions, and then we'll wrap it up probably within the next few minutes. Okay, another question, can you get paid while in the field experience? Can you get paid?
Yes, some students get paid. It's rare, but it happens. And if they want to pay you at your practicum or your internship, that's between you and them, and it certainly is not something that would preclude you doing it.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's pretty rare, maybe like 10% of our students.
At best.
At best, true.
Okay, excellent. Thanks for addressing that. Dina, should the portfolio be, what do you suggest, electronic or paper portfolio?
That's a great question. Let me unmute here. That is a great question. I think there are value in both types of portfolios. They are used for a different purpose. A paper portfolio is great for the interview process because you can open it up and you can show specific samples of your work. So it's right there, it's tactile, and it's something you can leave with the site. An e-folio is helpful to market your personal brand out there and show that you're tech savvy. You can provide a link with your application materials, and some situations you can't really mail an entire portfolio. So in that case, an e-folio is very helpful. So I would probably create a paper, tactile portfolio, and the same information I would scan it in and create an online portfolio as well.
Okay, excellent. And I think one more question. Is Walden working on developing agreements with specific sites? This person says most of the facilities that I have contacted for clinical practicum have agreements with my state's university clinical programs.
Yeah, there's a phenomenon out there called captured sites, and many universities will make arrangements in their local communities to capture hospitals and clinics for use by their students only. Walden does not have any captured sites per se because we're spread, of course, all over the country. We do have some agreements with a few hospitals here and there where they will readily accept new students without a great deal of paperwork rigmarole, but we don't have any captured sites per se. However, we do have approximately 1,000 sites where our students have been over the last 5 to 8 years. And you can certainly go through there. They'll be familiar with the university because they've worked with other students, and that can be quite helpful.
Okay, thank you. One last question coming in. Dr. Ford mentioned it may take up to a year to get placed. Would you recommend beginning face-to-face introductions to potential sites prior to reaching the academic requirements?
Yes, I would. I think the sooner you start chatting with people about the possibilities of being trained in their agency, the better. And the more talk you do and the more familiar they are with you, the better. And of course, the earlier you start, the more people you can talk to, the more luxury you have in terms of getting referrals from people who may not even have anything for you. They can point you to other people who can point you to other people, and you can literally build a network and then rework that network, even though you may not have gotten an affirmative answer because they may say, we don't have anything right now. If you get back to them 6 months later, they may have something. So the more time you have to do that, the better.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us and for all your insightful questions. I hope you enjoyed the webinar, and again, it will be recorded and archived on our website within the next few weeks, and we thank you for joining us again, and have a great evening, and hope you found it very informative.
And don't forget that you can write to me, you can write to Jennifer, you can
That's
write
right.
to Dr. Marsh, and to Dr. Leonetti as appropriate. And I would strongly encourage you to do that with any and all of your questions.
Excellent. Thank you, Jennifer, Dr. Ford,
You're
and Dina.
welcome.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.